Okay, everyone, that went quick, didn't it? So we're ready for our next speaker. Bonnie Tyler said she was holding out for a hero. Tina Turner says we don't need another hero. Stuart Rance is here to tell us how it should be. Please welcome Stuart Rance.
Thank you. I have some notes which I shall not refer to. I'll just forget to say things. Is there a clicker here that moves the slides? I'm going to push a button. I've no idea if it's the right one. No? What about that one? Fantastic. So, my name is Stuart. I'm an independent consultant and trainer and author. I do security and IT service management. And Sally said to me, look, we're talking about people at our conference this week. Would you like to come and talk about people? And I have a passionate belief that we've made a mistake in setting up our IT organisations to depend on heroes. And I don't think it's the hero's fault. I think it's ours. So I came up with the title of this presentation. I don't know if anybody recognises it. Unhappy is the land that needs a hero. It's a quote from a play by Bertolt Brecht. I love Brecht. And it's his play about the life of Galileo. And Galileo has just been into the church court and he has recanted. Galileo has been to the church court and he said, no, you're right, the sun goes around the earth. I was wrong. And he comes out and his friend Andrea is very disappointed. And Andrea says to Galileo, unhappy is the land that has no hero, Galileo. And Galileo looks at him and he says, no, Andrea, you're wrong. Unhappy is the land that needs a hero. It's not the hero's fault, it's our fault for setting up structures and institutions where we need a hero to come and save the day. Neil was just talking about how when the IT goes wrong, he doesn't care about the processes, he expects somebody to come in and fix it. He wants his hero. We set up everything we do in IT. I love this, a young teenage anime character called Inuyasha. Look her up. So, I've skipped the slide somehow. Come on. So, the service fails. We send in the hero. The hero fixes it. It's fantastic. Record time. Everybody's relieved. Well done, hero. Great job. Later, we hold a postmortem. The hero gets their reward. They get their promotion. They get their pay rise. We do a bit of root cause analysis, we fix the root cause. Yet again, we've saved the day. Isn't IT fantastic? Meanwhile, back in the back office somewhere, somebody is working really, really hard to try and stop incidents from happening. They're installing the patches that you need so that next week's ransomware attack isn't going to succeed. They're designing the failover so that when the server fails, it transparently fails over. Nobody notices. No heroes needed. No excitement. They're reviewing changes to make sure that we're not going to break the service on Monday morning when people come in expecting to deliver a lecture. This is boring, isn't it? Nobody notices this person working really, really hard. It's a thankless job, literally thankless, as in nobody knows what they've done, nobody notices them, nobody says thank you, and the better we are at doing this, the less visible IT is, the less anybody values us. So, it's annual pay review time. Who gets the rewards? Has anybody been in this situation? You're doing the reviews, you've got the great hero that saved the day time and time and time again, and you've got the hard worker back in the office that nobody notices. When we do what every organisation does, and it's not just in education, it's across every industry, when we reward that hero, when they are Employee of the Month, when we get the customer satisfaction surveys and that person's name appears on every one of them as a hero, and the person doing the real work, really creating the value, is not recognised. We drive behaviour. It's not the hero that's the problem, it's the land that needs a hero. It's our fault. We set the world up in such a way that we need heroes, and those heroes are not doing us any favours. Every time we need that hero, we have just let our customers down. Of course, some heroes actually intentionally cause problems. I was working in a London finance company some years ago, and there was a major incident where no financial trading could take place. And the great hero, the person everybody knew was a hero, came in and solved the day yet again. They always did. My job was to do the detailed root cause analysis. And when I did the detailed root cause analysis, I found plenty of evidence to show that the hero had intentionally caused the outage so that they could ride in and save the day again, because they hadn't had a major heroic event for a few months, and they were worried that people weren't noticing them. Fortunately, they weren't as clever as they thought. Fortunately, they weren't as clever as me. So I actually produced enough of an audit trail that we could prove what had happened. When you set up an environment that needs heroes, when you set up an environment where heroes come in and save the day, you will get people who will put themselves in that position, who will make sure they're needed, who will make your IT fail so that they can recover it for you. It's a bit sad, isn't it? But it really, truly happens in the real world right now in many different organisations. Of course, sometimes the hero doesn't do it on purpose. They're not malicious. They're stupid. Actually, as it happens, it was another big London finance firm. I've worked for many years in the London finance industry because I'm London-based, and that's where all the big money is for IT support. We had a very solid, reliable platform that had been running for years and years and years. Quietly, happily, no issues, nothing goes wrong. If this platform failed, then the whole of the London Stock Exchange would grind to a halt. So they kind of cared about it. And we had two quite senior system admins, old blokes. They were lazy. Old, lazy support blokes. How did their laziness manifest? They put in the patches in time. They were very reluctant to make changes. They nurtured and nursed the systems. They tested the failovers. They were great. Well, within a few weeks of each other, they both retired. And they got in this new, really keen, really very, very, very clever sysadmin. He was a lot cleverer than me, I'll tell you. And he was great. He kept inputting little tweaks that would improve the system. Every day there were more improvements going in. And the system kept failing. And do you know what? Not a single one of those failures was their fault. Not one. I worked at this time for the vendor that provided the operating system and the hardware. And they could prove definitively that in every case it was the operating system or the hardware that had let them down. It was true. Of course, if he'd left it alone, if he'd never touched it, if he hadn't put in all his little tweaks and changes and that actually created no business value, it would have carried on just like it had for the previous 10 years, delivering the service in a boring and routine manner. So sometimes the heroes are malicious, but sometimes they're just careless. We all know people like that, don't we? Oh, we could take it. Oh, let's just leave it alone if it's working, eh? So, I just thought you'd like to know a little bit about me, mainly because I wanted to put my head on a Lego figure. I used to do very, very heavy level 3 hardware and software support. I was the man who wrote in and patched the device driver in a hurry on the fly because somebody wasn't trading. I was a serious hero. I got huge pay rises. I tell you what, doing this in the city of London in the 1990s, in those trading places, you got paid very, very well. I really was a hero. And I was working for the vendor of the hardware and the operating system, And one of the managers called me in and gave me a project, and he said, we don't understand. We sell the same kit to all of our customers, and some of them really love us. They think we are the best thing since sliced bread. I've never understood that phrase. They think our hardware's brilliant, our software's brilliant, our support's brilliant. Nothing we do ever upsets them. And other customers have major reliability issues. Things keep going wrong. The systems are unreliable, the software's unreliable, nothing works, it takes ages. What's the difference? Why is it that we have one group of customers who hate us and another group love us? Can you go out and do a piece of research and try and understand what's the difference? Why is it that some customers love us and some hate us? And we're dealing sort of early to mid-1990s now. And I went and I interviewed lots of customers and I collected lots of data. And it took me a few weeks, and I went back to my management and I said, it's really simple. The ones that really love you are doing something they call IT service management. And they're doing things they call change management and incident management and problem management and capacity management and availability management. And they're in control of their own fates. And the ones that really hate you are staffed with heroes who keep recovering the day. And every time it goes wrong, I said, I'll tell you what, it's made me completely rethink my career. Straight up. And I was level 3 support until about the mid-1990s, and then I completely switched into doing IT service management. And the reason I made that switch was because I could see where the value was getting created. It's not getting created. The heroes are not part of your value creation, they're part of your problem. The value creation comes from the planning, the testing, the patching, the design, the work you do so that you don't need a hero. Another interesting story. Was I the only person here that was involved in the big Y2K event? You're all too young for it, aren't you? Y2K, I didn't half make a lot of money that weekend, I tell you. God dear. I did a shift ending at about 1 o'clock in the morning on the 1st of January, and I got paid about 20 times my normal rate for that shift. So, what happened? We recognised that there was a potential issue because of programming errors that had built up over time. I'll talk about technical debt later. But the idea that we knew we'd made mistakes and we had to fix them all. And there was a huge project, lasted at least a year, probably 2 or 3 years for many organisations, to identify all of the coding bugs that had been based on an assumption that the first 2 digits of the century were 19. And we fixed all the code. And it was a major, major project. There was a huge amount of configuration management work to understand everything that was out there and what revisions it was, of coding, of deployment, of patching, of updates. So what happens, come Y2K, nothing happens. Damp squib. Now, did the companies that had just spent a lot of money on their Y2K projects say, well done IT, great job, nothing happened? Or did they say it was a con, wasn't it? You conned us out of all that money and nothing went wrong. There wasn't a Y2K problem at all, was there? Which of those do you think happened? The latter, yeah. You just read it in the newspapers. IT conned everyone. No, we didn't. We did a good job, but nobody recognises that good job because it's proactive, invisible, and delivers what the customers want. I don't know what you do about this, but we have to somehow change the mindset so that people do value this kind of work. It wasn't a damp squib, it was a brilliant job of work by a lot of hard-working people. I tell you what, they were useless at marketing. So, what does good look like if you are doing a great job in IT? Firstly, do not go out and say, Stuart Rance said we don't need people to fix things. Because I wouldn't be so stupid. You do need to have people who can fix things, but you need to do a lot of proactive work. You need to think about what might go wrong and how can we recover when it does go wrong. You need to plan your automated failover. You need to set up the kind of collaboration and teamwork that we did for those huge Y2K projects so that everything's a damp squib. Everything's boring. IT never does anything. The best IT support organisation is one where the customer thinks you're a waste of money because you never do anything. I mean it, and it's very, very hard because then you have to market it. So, I'm going to talk about some very specific things you can do in IT service management to help move you on this journey away from being reactive towards being in control of your own fate. Technical debt. Are people familiar with the term technical debt? Few noddy heads. Anti-fragile. Familiar with anti-fragile? Good. DevOps everybody knows. And the last one is going to be a little bit about how we reward. Technical debt is this idea that it comes from the finance industry. If you think about a financial debt, the more you borrow, the more you've got to pay back. The longer you borrow it for, the more you've got to pay back. And if you borrow too much and over too long a period, you find servicing your debt is all you can do. And you don't even have any money left for buying food. Technical debt is the cost of decisions we've made in the past, of design decisions, like Y2K was a huge technical debt. We'd all made this assumption that the first 2 digits of the century were 19, and there was a huge amount of payback. And we had to pay it back, and it was very, 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 very expensive. So if you think of IT in terms of technical debt, that means every time you make a compromise, and I'm not saying don't make those compromises, you document it. You document it as technical debt in your solution. Every time you decide to deploy something, even though you know it's not quite right, you report your technical debt. You carry it on a risk register, on a technical debt register, and you make sure that a percentage of every project you do is allocated to reducing technical debt within the platform, within the infrastructure, within the application, within whatever you're working on. So as well as delivering new functionality, you are constantly, in an active way, paying off the technical debt. I came across a lovely example of technical debt some time ago. There was a very early Windows computer game called Wing Commander. Did anybody come across it? So just before they shipped Wing Commander, they discovered a nasty bug. And the bug didn't affect gameplay at all. It was a memory management bug, which meant when they exited from the game, it did a core dump all over the screen of just said memory management error and dumped loads of numbers, and it looked ugly. And they needed to ship. They needed to ship in a hurry. It had no effect on gameplay, so what did they do? They patched the error handler so that any time there was a memory management error, it output a message, "Thank you for playing Wing Commander." And they shipped the game. That's technical debt. Because you know and I know that one day there's going to be a real memory management error from some other application, and the screen's going to say, "Thank you for playing Wing Commander," and nobody will have a clue what's gone wrong. Nothing wrong with shipping it in that state. It was the right business decision. But the mistake they made was not paying back the technical debt with the next release. And we see that all the time. You ship things with technical debt in them, that's fine. That's, you know, you make business decisions based on what you can do now with the resources you've got now. But I'd suggest to you that if every project you run, you assign at least 10% of your project resources to paying back technical debt, you end up with systems and services that don't need heroes because you've eliminated the things that keep going wrong. Plan to pay back your technical debt. That's my first piece of advice. Anti-fragile. I love anti-fragile. Most IT systems are fragile. That means they break, you need a hero to mend them. Sometimes we build them really, really strong, really tough, sort of fortress approach. We're going to put in firewalls and we're going to put in multiples of these. Typically, however much you invest in stopping something from breaking, eventually shit happens. No matter how much you invest in stopping things from breaking, eventually, well, in fact, if you make something that almost never breaks, the one time it breaks, you'll find nobody's ever learnt how to mend it. So when we design these huge, rigid, rugged, solid solutions, we are setting ourselves up for catastrophic failure. Like happened in, I won't mention the name of the bank. Do you remember there was an incident last year when a particular bank, nobody could get any money out of their accounts for a week? They had a really solid solution that was never going to fail. And when it did, it was too complex, they didn't understand it, and it took a week before anybody could access their bank account again. The idea of anti-fragile is to recognise that things are constantly going to break and to let them break and to let them recover well. I said to my wife, what can I use as an image for anti-fragile? And she's quite clever. She said, draw them a dandelion. Everybody knows a dandelion. You can pull it up, can't you? You can cut its head off. You can poison it. I don't care. It's growing back, isn't it? That's the idea of anti-fragile, that it learns, it adapts, it just keeps growing. One of the things that anti-fragile comes up with, I think it was Netflix that came up with an idea called Chaos Monkey. How many people are familiar with Chaos Monkey? So Chaos Monkey is this very simple idea of they run a script that randomly takes out parts of the infrastructure. At first they only ever did this during test times and then only at night, and then now they leave it running all the time. So for Netflix, random bits of infrastructure are constantly failing, not because they're failing, but because the Chaos Monkey is killing them. The idea being that they know they can recover, and if they can't, they want to know about it. Interestingly, one of my friends came up with this idea of an infected Chaos Monkey for security management. The idea is you get a server and you load onto it every single piece of malware and ransomware and rubbish and nasty that you've ever heard of, and then you stick it at a random place inside your network. Can I have a show of hands, please, who'd do that? Thank you, sir. It's a serious question. Why wouldn't you do it? Is your network so badly designed and so weak that that will bring you to your knees? So here's my suggestion to you then. Use a virtual infected Chaos Monkey. What do I mean by that? I mean, do a thought experiment. If Stuart came with his infected Chaos Monkey and put it on this network segment, what would go wrong? It's a fantastic thought experiment to do. You can fix that one network segment then, can't you? You know what's going to go wrong. Now you know what you've got to do to fix it. You've got to pay back that technical debt that you've accumulated. So using something like a virtual infected, this is a great phrase, isn't it? Virtual infected Chaos Monkey. Using something like that and as a thought experiment, you will identify all those weaknesses and fix them. And then, next time there's some huge ransomware that gets all of your colleagues and you just sit there smug, don't you? Because you've invested up front in not needing the hero. So, anti-fragile, we expect them to break, they recover fast, we test the recovery all the time. Oh look, suddenly we don't need a hero. DevOps. I've seen a lot of different descriptions of DevOps. I talk sometimes about the 3 ways of DevOps, about the flow, about the feedback, about the experimentation and learning. What I want to talk about today is the collaboration. If somebody tells you that DevOps is all about CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery, they're wrong. That's just tools. Anybody can do tools. DevOps is about collaboration within and between teams. And collaboration is the antithesis of the hero culture. We don't want a hero that saves the day. We want a team that works together to give us a solution that we want. One of the issues with having heroes is it means 90% of your people aren't heroes. So how do they feel all the time? How do you get the best out of everybody? You do it by getting everybody to collaborate, by getting them to work together, by getting them to focus on the things that really matter. So if you're introducing DevOps, is anybody doing any work with DevOps? That's surprisingly few when compared with other industries. That's interesting. It will come to you. I promise it's coming, because it's come to every other industry that I've seen recently. Make sure that your people don't think of DevOps as being something about a tool chain and about rapid deployment. It's not. That's a tiny part of it. It's about culture, it's about applying lean principles, it's about measurement, it's about sharing, and it's about collaborating. Eli Goldratt. Eli Goldratt, the father of the theory of constraints. My wife used to teach theory of constraints 20 years ago, and I had no idea it had anything to do with IT until surprisingly recently. And then, I know this stuff, it's fantastic. Eli Goldratt once said, "Tell me how you will measure me, and I will tell you how I will behave." It's true. If I know your metrics, I can predict your behaviour. Now, have I got time for this story? Yeah, I've got loads of time. So, I just want to illustrate this issue with measurements and behaviour to you. One of my kids needed to go to the dental hospital, and the doctor said to me, "Which hospital do you want to take her to?" And I said, "I don't care." And he said, "Well, look, this one's got the shortest queue for response time." So I said, "Yeah, all right, we'll go there." Doctor wrote a letter to the dental hospital. 2 weeks later, we've not heard anything. I phone up the dental hospital, say, "Are you making an appointment?" "We haven't received a letter." I go back to the doctor, I say, "The letter must have got lost, they never got it." So the doctor wrote a second, this is a genuine true story, I promise you. Doctor wrote a second letter to the same dental hospital. 2 weeks later, I phone them up. "Can I have my appointment?" "We've had no letter." I go to the doctor, I say, "Look, can you write another one, and I will hand carry it to the hospital?" And I did. I went along to the dental hospital, and I went to the reception, and I said, "Look, the other letters didn't arrive. I've hand carried this one. I don't know if the doctor sent it to the wrong address or what." The receptionist said, "No, I know what's happened," and gets out this big box from under the desk and said, "Here's the box of letters that haven't arrived yet." Hospitals in the UK are measured on the time from when they get the request until when you get your appointment. If the letter hasn't arrived yet, they haven't started the clock yet. You're laughing, but the same things are happening right now in every IT department in the world. I see it. I look at metrics. If you tell me the metrics, I will tell you the behaviour. If you measure a hospital on the time from when the letter arrives till the time of the appointment, there will be a box of letters that haven't arrived yet. You're shaking your head. I promise you it's happening in your own organisation right now.
It's dismaying.
Yeah, we know. I do it myself. If you tell me your pay rise depends on this number hitting this target, I guarantee you that number's going to hit that target. How you measure people changes their behaviour. If we are measuring and rewarding heroics, we will get heroics. If you want proactive behaviour, find ways to measure and reward proactive behaviour, and that's what you'll get. And that brings me to my final one of these areas that I wanted to suggest to you. This is hard. If you have individual targets, you will get individual heroic behaviour. Can you imagine having a football team where individual people are given, "You've got to score this number of goals targets"? Is the team going to win their matches? Not a chance. Somehow you have to put in targets for teams that the team can work towards and collaborate towards, and measure the team and not the individuals. Now, because the man's just given me a 2-minute warning, I'm going to summarise by saying design solutions that don't need heroes, create collaborative culture, and measure and reward your teams. And just to finish, Tina Turner said this much better than I can. I'm hoping that man's going to kick off the video for me.
We don't need another hero.
Thank you.
Questions for Stuart? Any questions?
Seriously, I'll be around for a while, but I'm happy to take questions.
How do you go, have you got any advice for building metrics that don't encourage that behaviour?
Oh gosh, I have done a lot of this over the years. The real trick is to use the metrics as indicators and not goals. What do I mean by that? I mean, if you've got a metric of, I don't know, mean time to resolve incidents for your service desk, use that to track trends, use that to set thresholds, do not use it as a goal for a person. Most KPIs that you measure and report, there was, I can't remember the guy's name, he comes from the finance industry again, and there's somebody's law that says when the metric becomes the goal, it becomes useless. I do it with stories. I do it with stories about NatWest Bank and their week of not servicing any customers. I do it with stories of other institutions that have been... So let's have a look at the NHS. Very recently, huge ransomware. Why? Because they hadn't done the routine patching that they knew they needed to do, but it was technical debt. So for me, the way to get management to address technical debt is to tell them stories of other organisations that haven't addressed technical debt.
Anything else? Now please join me in thanking Stuart.
Thank you.